She started like this: sweet messages, constant compliments, uninterrupted attention. He said she was unique, special, that he had never met anyone like her. He made promises, offered future plans, presented himself as the perfect man. But gradually, she began to notice something strange. Every time she disagreed, he made her feel guilty. Every criticism was a threat. Every conversation turned into a courtroom. She wondered if she was going crazy, if the problem was her. And him? Always with that controlled smile, that subtle superiority, that rehearsed speech of someone who never makes mistakes. If this sounds familiar, it's no coincidence. It's a pattern, and it has a name. Maybe you know someone like this. A friend who always needs to be the center of attention. A relative who never admits to being wrong. A co-worker who seems too charismatic to be true. Maybe you have lived with one of them. Or worse, maybe you are still trapped under the spell of a narcissist without knowing it. The narcissist doesn't come with a warning. He doesn't shout. He seduces. He wears masks. He enchants, manipulates. And when he realizes he has you in his grasp, he reveals his true face, cold, calculating, and deeply destructive. And the most dangerous part, he can make you believe that you are the problem, that everything that is wrong is your fault. He turns the game around before you even understand that you're playing. But to understand why these people are so dangerous, we need to go back to the origin, to the story that named all of this. The term narcissism comes from Greek mythology. Narcissus was a young man so beautiful that he fell in love with his own image reflected in the water. Unable to detach from his obsession, he withered away until he died. Freud was the first to turn this myth into a diagnosis, but it was Carl Jung who went deeper, who warned about the dangers of the narcissistic shadow, that hidden part of the human being that refuses to look inward and projects onto others everything it cannot accept in itself. Because narcissism is not just exaggerated vanity or egocentrism. It is a dysfunctional psychic structure that distorts reality to protect a fragile and inflated ego. It is an insatiable hunger for control, admiration, and power. It is an emotional trap disguised as affection. And the worst part? Narcissists are not easy to identify. They are masters at appearing normal. And while you don't understand what you are facing, they continue to undermine your self-esteem, your autonomy, your sanity. That's why this video is not just a theoretical analysis. It is a warning. It is a direct conversation with you, who may be trying to understand why certain people make you doubt yourself. Why you feel like you are always walking on eggshells. Why, even giving your all, it still seems never to be enough. Today, you will see what was once invisible. You will understand the workings of the narcissistic mind through the eyes of Carl Jung and other scholars of the psyche. You will learn how to identify, resist, and, most importantly, free yourself from this destructive cycle. Because the first step to protecting yourself from a narcissist is knowing how to recognize him. Are you ready to look behind the mask? To understand the modern narcissist, we need to go back to the beginning, before psychology, before Freud, even before Jung. We need to return to ancient Greece, where myths were not just stories, they were maps of the human soul. Narcissus was a young man of unparalleled beauty. Everyone desired him, but he desired no one. He ignored the love of others with coldness and disdain. One day, while walking through the forest, he saw his reflection in a lake, and there he stayed, fascinated. Unable to pull away from his own image, he was consumed by a selfish, solitary, and self-destructive passion. He died right there, drowned in himself. In the place where his body fell, a flower was born, the daffodil. But what does this story really reveal to us? Narcissus did not truly love himself. He loved the image of himself, a reflection, an illusion. And this is the most important point. The narcissist is not someone who loves themselves too much. They are someone who has created an idealized image to hide the deep lack of self-love. An inflated ego on the outside, but empty on the inside. An abyss coated in shine. Freud was the first to transform this symbolic tragedy into a clinical concept. He saw narcissism as a normal phase of human development, but also a possible disorder when this fixation on the self is not overcome. Carl Jung took the reflection to another level. For Jung, narcissism is deeply linked to the shadow, that unconscious part of the personality that the ego refuses to integrate. The narcissist, then, is one who lives in war with their own shadow, but projects it onto others. They do not see their flaws. They accuse others of them. They do not recognize their weaknesses. They turn them into attacks. The modern narcissist does not drown in a literal lake. They drown in the obsession with control, in the constant search for validation, in the refusal to accept that they might be wrong. They build a world where they are the center, and everyone else orbits around, until, inevitably, everything collapses. But what about you? Have you ever wondered if you live with someone like that? Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you try to please, it's never enough? Have you noticed that certain people seem to emotionally drain you, wrapping you in a cycle of guilt, doubt, and exhaustion? If so, brace yourself. Because now that we understand where narcissism comes from, it's time to examine how it manifests in daily life. In the next part, we will reveal the first key behavior of the narcissist, their seductive charm, and why it is so dangerous. Are you ready to see how the poison begins with a smile? If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. No one suspects a predator that smiles. This is how the narcissist enters your life. Charming, attentive, magnetic. He studies you with surgical precision. He discovers what you value, what you miss, which emotional wounds are still open. And then he molds himself exactly to fill that void. He transforms into what you have always wanted. He seems to understand you better than anyone else. He compliments you strategically, listens to you as if every word was sacred. But none of this is real. It's a mirror, carefully positioned to reflect exactly what you want to see. This is the trap. The narcissist is a master of first impressions. He knows that appearance matters more than essence at the beginning. And it is at this stage, the stage of seduction, that he wins you over. He makes himself indispensable. He creates a quick, intense, almost hypnotic emotional bond. In psychology, this is called love bombing, an overload of affection, attention, and validation that disarms the victim's natural defenses. You let your guard down, you trust, you surrender. But what seems like affection is disguised control. What seems like connection is, in fact, manipulation. Carl Jung warned that everything that is excessively idealized carries within it the seed of destruction. The narcissist idealizes himself, and by extension, idealizes you. But not because he loves you, but because he needs you to be a perfect reflection of the fantasy he has created. The moment you show flaws, doubts, human emotions, he feels betrayed. As if the mask you were supposed to wear to feed him is cracking. And that's when the game starts to change. The charm of the narcissist, deep down, is bait. He doesn't want to know who you really are. He wants to use who you seem to be to satisfy the void he himself refuses to face. He needs your admiration like an addict needs the next fix. But when it starts to run low, when you begin to demand reciprocity, real presence, depth, he gets irritated. The mask starts to slip. And the same smile that attracted you now becomes a weapon. But this is just the beginning. Because the true terror is not in the seduction phase, it's in what comes next. In the next part, we will delve into the heart of the nightmare, the cycle of idealization, devaluation, and discard, the destructive pattern that all narcissists follow, and that leaves their victims emotionally devastated. After the enchantment comes the chaos. If the narcissist has captivated you with attention, sweet words, and intense presence, it was only to prepare the ground for what really matters to him: control. And this control is not established in an obvious way. It happens through a repetitive, predictable, and devastating cycle. The cycle of idealization, devaluation, and discard. In the first phase, you are placed on a pedestal. He exalts you, treats you as if you were perfect. You are the soulmate, the most special person he has ever met. Every message from you is received with enthusiasm. Every moment together feels magical. You feel like you have finally found someone who truly sees you. But what you don't realize is that this vision was never about you. It was about him. He is not seeing you. He is projecting a fantasy. And when you start to show signs of humanity, when your imperfections appear, and they always do, something changes. Without you noticing, you move from the idealization phase to devaluation. Here, the narcissist begins to subtly criticize you. Nothing direct, small corrections, passive-aggressive comments, comparisons disguised as advice. You start to feel confused, insecure, as if you are constantly failing, even without understanding exactly why. He praises you less, blames you more. You try to compensate, try to return to what it was at the beginning, but nothing works, because for him the problem was never you. It was the fact that you stopped being the perfect projection he idealized. And then comes the most brutal phase, the discard. The narcissist pulls away, becomes cold, indifferent. It can end abruptly, disappear without explanations, or worse, provoke you until you end it yourself, so he can take on the role of the victim. In many cases, he already has someone else in mind, someone new to idealize, someone who hasn't seen the mask fall yet. Meanwhile, you are left with the emptiness, with the guilt, with the corrosive doubt. What did I do wrong? Nothing. You did nothing wrong. Carl Jung said that everything we deny in ourselves will be projected onto others. The narcissist, by refusing to confront his own fragilities and insecurities, unloads all of this onto the victim. He does not deal with rejection, criticism, or frustration. So he turns all of this into other people's guilt. It is a pathological defense mechanism, sustained by emotional manipulation and psychic destruction. But the most dangerous part is that this cycle does not happen just once. Many return, apologize, promise to change, restart the cycle, and each return deepens the emotional dependency of the victim, who begins to doubt their own sanity. It is an invisible prison. And you? Are you inside this cycle? If so, it's time to see clearly what is behind this game: emotional manipulation. In the next part, we will reveal how the narcissist distorts reality, makes you doubt yourself, and traps you in a web of guilt and confusion. Have you ever felt guilty about something you deep down know you didn't do? Have you ever found yourself apologizing, even without understanding why? Have you ever tried to fix a situation that the other person clearly created, but somehow convinced you that the blame was yours? If so, you have been manipulated by a narcissist, and you may not have even realized it. This is the most insidious part of narcissistic behavior. They don't yell to dominate you. They distort reality. They sow doubt. They rewrite the facts while you are still trying to understand what happened. And they do this with chilling precision because they study your vulnerabilities. They know where to poke. They know how to make you question your own perception. Carl Jung stated that what we do not confront in ourselves, we end up encountering as fate. For the narcissist, this means never looking inward, never admitting fault, never taking responsibility. So what do? They project. They transfer onto you everything they cannot stand in themselves: insecurity, shame, fear of rejection, repressed anger. You become the mirror and pay the price for reflecting a truth they refuse to see. And this projection does not come alone. It is accompanied by a series of carefully calibrated emotional manipulation tactics designed to keep you submissive, confused, and emotionally exhausted. One of the most common is gaslighting, a term that comes from an old play in which the husband gradually dims the house lights while convincing his wife that she is imagining things. The goal? To make her doubt her own sanity. The narcissist does the same. They deny conversations that happened, twist facts, minimize your emotions. If you cry, they say you are being dramatic. If you pull away, they say you are being cold. If you react, they say you are crazy. Over time, you start to believe it. You begin to question your memory, your emotions, your boundaries. You start to mold yourself to what they want, just to avoid further conflict. And that's when they trap you for good. Another common mechanism is triangulation, where the narcissist involves third parties, real or imagined, to destabilize you. It could be an ex, a friend, a co-worker. They compare you to these people, suggest that they are better, more understanding, more beautiful, more interesting. And you, already emotionally weakened, try to prove yourself. You try to compete for a place that was already yours, but is now conditioned to your emotional obedience. Manipulation also manifests in the use of guilt. The narcissist will make you feel ungrateful for complaining. They will say that no one has ever done for you what they have done. They will remind you of the times they helped you, even if those helps were disguised exchanges for affection. And the result is predictable. You start to walk on eggshells. You avoid displeasing them, and gradually, you begin to disappear from yourself to fit into their world. But there is an even crueler point. The narcissist knows what they are doing, not always consciously and maliciously, but they feel they are winning when you give in, when you negate yourself, when you doubt yourself. They feel powerful. And that's why the cycle never ends, because as long as you are emotionally unstable, they will feel in control. The good news? Once you understand these dynamics, you start to see the pattern. And when you see the pattern, you begin to free yourself. But before that, it is essential to understand the cost of remaining trapped in this type of relationship. Because the damage caused by a narcissist is not just emotional. It is deep, psychic, sometimes invisible, but always corrosive. In the next part, we will explore the wounds these relationships leave, mental exhaustion, loss of identity, and how the victim's soul begins to disappear without realizing it. If this video resonated with your experience, you'll find real value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's key concepts and gives you practical tools to recognize manipulation and heal from emotional abuse. Link is in the pinned comment. Few things destroy as much as being slowly erased without realizing it. Relationships with narcissists do not explode. They corrode. Gradually, without fanfare, without constant shouting. It is an emotional death in slow motion. And when you finally realize, you no longer know who you are. At first, everything seems perfect. Then, tension begins. Next comes the fear of making mistakes, of displeasing, of not being enough. And then, one day, you look in the mirror and do not recognize yourself. Where is that confident, spontaneous, full-of-life person? Where has your intuition, your lightness, your ability to say no, gone? You start to live in a way that avoids emotional explosions, subtle outbursts of anger, punitive silences. And that is exactly where the narcissist wins, when you stop being you to keep the peace with someone who will never give you peace. Carl Jung said that no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but rather by making the darkness conscious. And what could be darker than a relationship where you are taught, little by little, to distrust your own soul? The psychological impact of living with a narcissist is profound. Many victims develop chronic anxiety, panic attacks, depression. Others show symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, the kind of trauma that does not come from a single event, but from repeated small aggressions over time. Self-esteem is shattered. You start asking for permission to exist, to feel, to have boundaries. And the cruelest part? All of this happens in silence, without witnesses, without visible marks. The wounds are emotional, but the effects are physical. Insomnia, constant fatigue, lack of appetite, hormonal dysregulation. Your body starts to scream what your mind has been trying to say for months or years. You are being destroyed. And when you try to explain to someone outside, the reactions are almost always the same. But he seems so nice. She is so friendly. It can't be that bad. Because the narcissist builds a perfect public image. They are attentive, charismatic, polite to others. And you, who are exhausted, confused, and emotionally shaken, start to doubt yourself once again. To wonder if you are exaggerating, if you are seeing things, if you are too sensitive, exactly how they taught you to think. But there is a brutal truth you need to hear. This is not love. It never was. Love does not hurt your identity. Love does not require you to nullify yourself. Love does not make you live in fear. What you are experiencing is a traumatic bond, an emotional connection built not with affection, but with fear, guilt, and manipulation. And no, you are not weak for falling into this. Narcissists choose empathetic, generous people willing to love deeply. They do not seek just anyone. They seek those who have light, because it is from that light that they feed. If you have been hurt, it was not for being fragile. It was for having value. But now that you see the wounds, the next step is to learn to protect yourself, because the narcissist only has power while you are unaware of their weapons. And when you begin to see clearly, they lose control. In the next and final part, you will discover how to identify these people before they enter your life, and how to emotionally free yourself from the influence they exert. Because understanding the narcissist is the first step. But breaking away from them is what truly gives you back your freedom. The narcissist doesn't come with a warning. He doesn't enter your life shouting, "I'm going to destroy you." He comes smiling, full of charm, with sweet words and seemingly pure intentions. And that's precisely what makes him so dangerous. He doesn't present himself as a threat, but as salvation. Therefore, the first way to protect yourself is to see what previously went unnoticed. It's to develop a clinical eye for the behavioral patterns that reveal the true nature behind the mask. Narcissists do not tolerate frustration. They react with anger, contempt, or punitive silence when contradicted. They do not accept criticism, even constructive criticism, and quickly cast themselves in the role of victims or martyrs. When something goes wrong, the blame is never theirs. When you suffer, they minimize, distort, or blame you. They invert reality so naturally that if you're not careful, you start to believe it. Notice how often you feel insecure around someone. Notice if you need to justify yourself all the time, apologize for having feelings, or walk on eggshells to avoid emotional outbursts. These are not normal dynamics. This is psychological violence, even if there are no screams or physical aggression. Another clear sign is dual behavior. With others, the narcissist is charming. With you, He is cruel, sarcastic, cold. In public, he is the ideal partner. At home, he is unpredictable, demanding, manipulative. He creates this dichotomy precisely so that no one believes you if you try to ask for help. It's a perverse, psychological game, and it works. But recognizing it is just the first step. The hardest and most liberating part is breaking free. Breaking away from a narcissist requires strength, but not the strength to confront him. It requires the strength to put yourself first, to cut contact when possible, to emotionally distance yourself even if you are still physically close, to stop expecting him to change, to regret, to one day understand the harm he caused. He won't. Because, for the narcissist, empathy is a threat. Acknowledging his own mistake would mean accepting a weakness, and that goes against everything he has built. You don't need an apology to move on. You don't need his acknowledgement to validate your pain. What you need is to reclaim your own voice, your own truth, your own worth. Carl Jung said that what we deny submits us, but what we accept transforms us. Accepting that you were manipulated, that you were deceived, that you were hurt, without blaming yourself, is the beginning of true freedom. Because when you understand that the narcissist's behavior speaks about him, not about you, everything changes. The weight lifts off your shoulders, the mental fog dissipates, and you begin, little by little, to reconnect with who you were before the chaos. If you've made it this far, know this: you have already begun to free yourself. Awareness is the key, and the courage to face the truth is the door that returns your life to you. Now I want to know, have you ever gone through something like this? Or do you know someone who needs to hear this message? Share in the comments. Your story can help others see what is still invisible to them. And if this video helped you in any way, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. This is not just a gesture, it's a stance. It's you saying, I choose not to remain silent in the face of manipulation. And don't stop here. Watch the next video. It's important. Because knowledge not only frees, it protects. And you deserve to be protected.